So I'm currently in Zanzibar in Tanzania, and today I'm going to be exploring Stone Town. So if you don't know, Stone Town is Zanzibar City's cultural and historical center, and it is definitely the place to go if you want to learn about this island's fascinating cultural heritage and historical legacy. This is actually my second time in Stone Town, so I spent about a week here in February of 2023, and now I'm back. And in case you didn't watch my last video that I posted, I'm actually back because I'm moving temporarily to Zanzibar. So I'm spending 3 months here from January to March of 2025. By the time I post these videos, I will already be back home. But yeah, I'm moving temporarily to Zanzibar. So if you missed that video, if you want to know what I'm doing here, why Zanzibar specifically, then definitely make sure you check that video. I'll link it in the description as well in case you want to watch it. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Laura. And I've spent the past few years traveling all over the world, but especially around Europe and Africa. So on this channel, I post lots of travel vlogs, also lots of travel guides, travel information videos, and lots of hidden gems as well. So if that sounds like something you like, definitely subscribe. And now let's go into the video and let's explore Stone Town. So like I was saying, Stone Town is Zanzibar City's old town. It's its cultural and historical center, and it's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But in order to understand Stone Town, you need to know a little bit of the history of Zanzibar, which is super interesting. So Zanzibar is an island just off the coast of mainland Tanzania. It is just 25 kilometers away from Dar es Salaam, and historically it has been the home of the African Swahili people. So this is the place where the Swahili language originates, and it is part of the Swahili coast, which comprises from the coast of Tanzania and Kenya and a little bit of the south of Somalia and northern Mozambique as well. And this is an area that historically has had a lot of trade. So Swahili merchants in Zanzibar operated as brokers for traders all over East Africa in places like modern-day Tanzania, Kenya, and as far as modern-day Uganda, Rwanda, the DRC, Mozambique, Zimbabwe even, and also ports in the Indian Ocean. So all over Persia, which is modern-day Iran, the Arabian Peninsula, in places such as Arabia, Yemen, Oman, and also India, and even as far away as China and Indonesia. Zanzibar was one of the main ports along the Indian Ocean trade routes, and in 1503, Zanzibar became part of the Portuguese Empire. So the Portuguese, they started exploring the African coastline and the Indian Ocean, and Zanzibar became part of their empire, basically. But that didn't last long, and in 1698, Zanzibar came under the influence of the Sultanate of Oman, so it became part of the Omani Sultanate, and Zanzibar proved to be such a profitable part of this empire that in 1832, the capital of the Sultanate was moved from Muscat in the Arabian Peninsula to Stone Town in Zanzibar. So Stone Town was actually at one point the capital of the Sultanate of Oman. And in 1890, Zanzibar became a British protectorate, so the island kept its Omani leadership, but it was effectively under control of the British. And in 1963, the protectorate ended, so Zanzibar became truly independent. It coincided with the independence of Tanganyika, which is mainland Tanzania, in 1964, and they formed both Tanganyika and Zanzibar to form what is today the United Republic of Tanzania. And something that I find really beautiful about this is that the word Tanzania is actually a combination of the words Tanganyika and Zanzibar. So Tan comes from Tanganyika, Za comes from Zanzibar, and Nia is a Swahili word which means unity. And I think this is such a beautiful name. So this is a very summarized history of Zanzibar. There's so much that happened that has lots of historical importance all throughout these centuries, and the history of this island has so much more nuance than I can explain in this video. But I did want to kind of give a brief summary because firstly, I think that the history of this island is just fascinating, but also because it shows how through trade and colonization, Zanzibar has so much cultural influence from lots of places from around the world. And you can definitely find lots of examples of cultural influence from India and from Arabia and from Europe in Stone Town, which is one of the things that makes it so fascinating for me. And one example of this, of cultural influence from other places around the world, is the Old Fort of Zanzibar. So it is also known as the Arab Fort, and it was built by the Omani Arabs after expelling the Portuguese in 1699. And this is the oldest building in Stone Town, which makes it a major tourist attraction. So the old fort is located by the seafront, and it started out as a garrison and a prison in the 19th century, and then it became the terminal of the Zanzibar Railways from 1905 to 1928. A new guardhouse was built later on in the 1940s, and it was also used as a ladies' club, and then the amphitheater was added in the 1990s. It is now the headquarters of the International Film Festival in Zanzibar, so this building has seen so much history, and it has been in use for centuries since it was built by the Omanis. And right next to the old fort, you can find another building which was built by the Omanis, which is the House of Wonders. So the House of Wonders was built by Sultan Bargash bin Said, and he was the second Sultan of Zanzibar, and he built this as his palace. So the House of Wonders is the largest and the tallest building in Stone Town, and it used to be a very iconic site of the Stone Town seafront. However, it has been under renovations for the past few years, so right now it's not as iconic. And the Stone Town seafront is such a nice place. The marine breeze is so calming and the palm trees are so nice. There's lots of little restaurants and places where you can have ice cream or a drink or buy a bottle of water. And there's also lots of little tourist shops. It's truly such a nice place to be. You've also got Stone Town Beach, which is a local beach and not the prettiest beach by Zanzibar standards. It's definitely not your typical turquoise water beach that you expect when you come to the island, but it has some truly great vibes, and I really recommend that you check it out if you're in Stone Town for the vibes alone. And I will make a separate video about this, but there's a food market here tonight called the Forodani Food Market, which has the best food, the best vibes. The sunsets here are amazing as well, so stay tuned for that video. But now let's actually go explore the inside, the little streets of Stone Town. So Stone Town is actually called this way because all of the buildings here are made of coral stone, which is so cool. And coral stone is definitely difficult to maintain, as you will see in lots of the villages. They're not the best kept, but I think it gives it such a nice look anyways. And Stone Town, even though it's technically a city and it's the city center of a pretty large city, it doesn't feel like that at all. It kind of feels like a small town. It gives off small town vibes, and that is one of the things that I love the most about Stone Town, is how calm it is. It is not overwhelming at all. It feels incredibly welcoming, incredibly quaint, and I love that. The streets are pretty narrow, but so nice. There's so much beautiful architecture over here, and also the little shops, the little tourist shops, which add such a pop of color, and I just love getting lost over here. And because Stone Town is quite small as well, even if you get lost, you're gonna find your way soon enough. Another lovely feature of the streets of Stone Town is its doors. So the doors in Stone Town are super traditional to the island, and you cannot find doors like this anywhere else in the world. In fact, each door is unique and its carvings are unique, so no two doors are alike. You will not see two doors that are the same. These doors are influenced by Indian, Swahili, and Arabic culture, and there is so much meaning behind them. The craftsmen who carved these doors originally made specific carvings that represented the occupation, the work, and the religion of the future owner of the door, of the owner of the house. And that's why no two doors are alike, because every single one was tailored to its owner. Something else that I find fascinating about these doors are the brass studs that you can find on many of them. So in Zanzibar, these studs used to signify wealth and nothing more. It was just a symbol of money, basically, from the owner of the house. But originally, these brass studs are influenced by Indian culture, and in India, they have a very different purpose. So in India, people would put brass studs on their doors as protection against war elephants. So whenever there would be a war, elephants would be used to knock down doors and buildings, so the brass studs would hurt the animal, and that way the doors would stand in place and it would be a protection against invaders. So I don't know about you, but I find that fascinating. I also wanted to show you this specific door. So this door that I'm showing you right now is actually the oldest door in town. So this door is over a century old, and I think it is so beautiful, so traditional. And I just love seeing how, you've got so much history just walking around these streets, but also so much local life and modern life. These stores are right next to modern tourist shops and modern life, and I find that so cool. Something else that you will see a lot of when you're in Stone Town are balconies. So balconies are also of Indian influence here. So they're specifically from a region of India called Gujarat. So you will see these balconies referred to as Gujarati balconies sometimes. But they're very, very popular, very intricate pieces of architecture. And in some cases, you will also see these covered up fully. So basically, in these covered up balconies, if you're sitting inside, you can see outside, but people from the outside can't see you. And this was actually a modification done by the Omanis. So back when Zanzibar was part of the Omani Sultanate, they were much more modest, and the Omanis specifically cared a lot about the modesty of the women. So they covered the balconies up, and that is why you will see these balconies referred to as Omani balconies and the other balconies as Gujarati or Indian balconies. But of course, all of the trade that went through Zanzibar didn't just influence architecture, it also deeply, deeply influenced culture, tradition, and also religion. So most of Zanzibar's population today practices Islam. It was brought by Persian traders in the 8th century, I believe, and there's lots of mosques that you can see all over Stone Town. This is one of the more famous ones because of its incredible door. This is one of the most beautiful doors in all of Stone Town. But not all of Zanzibar's population is Muslim, and it's actually a place with a lot of religious diversity. So because of the centuries of trade with India, there is a Hindu minority in Zanzibar, and you can see a small Hindu temple tucked deep within the depths of Stone Town streets, and this is the Sri Shiv Shakti Mandir temple. It has become a very popular stop in local tours in Zanzibar and walking tours, and you can also get a really great view of it if you go to a restaurant called Emerson on Hurumzi. So Emerson on Hurumzi has got a terrace where you can get a 360-degree view of Stone Town. It has some truly amazing views, and you can get a really, really lovely view of this temple, like I was saying. So if you're in Stone Town, definitely check this place out. And while Hinduism is a minority in Zanzibar right now, this temple right here is one of just 2 temples on the island. The earliest evidence of Hinduism in Tanzania dates back all the way to the 1st millennium BC, when there was early trade between East Africa and the Indian subcontinent, and archaeological evidence of small Hindu settlements from the period has been found in Zanzibar and all over the Swahili coast in Zimbabwe, Madagascar, Mauritius. So even though it's a minority with a lot of history on this island. There is also a small Catholic community here in Zanzibar, and as you can imagine, Stone Town also has its own Roman Catholic cathedral called the St. Joseph's Cathedral. It was built by French missionaries between 1893 and 1898, and something that I find really interesting about this church is that its design was based on that of the Marseille Cathedral in France, which I think is so curious. And of course, we can't talk about religious buildings in Stone Town without talking about the Anglican church here, which is Christ Church. And this is different from all of the other buildings that I've talked about. And that is because the construction of Christ Church was in fact intended to celebrate the end of slavery. Construction for this church ended in 1879, and it was built in Mgunazini Road, which is the place where the biggest slave market of Zanzibar and of all of Eastern Africa operated. In fact, its altar was placed exactly where the slaves for sale were whipped. On the floor, among the benches, there are black cobblestones as a remembrance of the dungeons used for slaves in the basement, and outside the cathedral there is a stone monument showing 4 people enchained by their necks as a way to remember and represent the way in which slaves were offered to buyers. There is also a slavery museum in this area. The entrance costs $5 or 11,500 shillings. And honestly, it's a place that you just have to visit if you're in Stone Town, because as beautiful as this place is, it has a very, very dark history with slavery, since one of the biggest slave markets operated from here, and Zanzibar was the center of the slave trade in the Indian Ocean. I also really like this museum because it gives very unbiased information. It tells the ugly, dark side of history as it is, and it doesn't try to hide or make excuses for Zanzibar's really dark past. So I actually want to read to you a little passage that is in the museum that is kind of an introduction to the history of slavery in Zanzibar. So in the mid-19th century, Zanzibar streets were teeming with slaves. There were tens of thousands of slaves living on the islands or passing through, accounting for more than 2/3 of the population. Slavery had always been a component of traditional East African society. During the 19th century, the trade grew into a highly lucrative business conducted by Europeans, Indians, Arabs, coastal people, and ethnic leaders of the mainland. By 1860, residents from all levels of society were benefiting from the dynamic growth of a slave-based economy. Enterprises were prospering. Slaves who earned wages and made savings invested in slaves themselves. Slavery in East Africa and the Indian Ocean continued unabated. Zanzibar was at the center of operations. It was another 40 years before the abolition of slave trading in East Africa was decreed by the island's Omani Sultanate in 1873. Still, slavery as an institution persisted in Zanzibar until 1909. Master-slave relations and clandestine kidnappings continued at least 2 decades longer. This is recent history, a history that created turmoil and division in Zanzibar society. The influx of people has ultimately enriched its culture, but painful memories endure, leaving a legacy, both positive and negative, behind. So I think this passage serves as a great introduction into the history of slavery. It's the first thing that you read when you get into the museum, and they have lots more explanations like these, which are great about the places where the slaves originated from in Central, East, and Southern Africa, their painful journeys to Zanzibar, and their roles once they got to Zanzibar, whether they stayed in the island or whether they were intended for export. And also, very importantly, there is a very large section on the process of freedom for slaves and the role of slavery in modern life today, and the role that slavery still has in Zanzibar, because this is something that really surprised me, is how slavery is still stigmatized in Zanzibari society today. For instance, there was a testimony given by a man in 2014 about how he had wanted to marry a girl once, but the girl's family had stopped the marriage because he descended from slaves. He was from a slave descending family. And to me, that was wild. It was really, really striking to read that. And this museum is incredibly honest. There is brutal honesty, which I think is needed when talking about this kind of thing, to not hide the ugly truth. And they also show a lot of nuances that happened in Zanzibari society during the time of slavery, and how not everything is black and white, so to speak, how local people also benefited from slavery, and how slavery was also sustained with the help of local chiefs in the mainland, as well as foreigners like Europeans, Arabs, or Indians, and how all of these actors came together to create this system. One of the things that really surprised me regarding this is how slaves often bought slaves themselves. Slaves who were better off would get slaves for themselves, which is crazy to me. It's crazy to think about. And there was one testimony in particular which was really striking to me, about a woman who sued for her freedom, and she argued that she had been unjustly slaved by her master, and the court agreed with her, so she was freed, and she was given compensation, financial compensation. And the first thing that she did with that financial compensation was buy a slave herself. And it's just crazy for me to think about. This museum definitely made me look at Stone Town in a different light, because as much as I love this place, and I truly, truly do, Stone Town is one of my favorite places in the world, I can't help but look at it differently now that I know that the buildings that I love and the streets that I love walking around were probably built by slaves. The spice trade that I love learning about and that I find fascinating flourished thanks to the slave trade, and 15 to 20% of slaves passed away in these plantations because of exhaustion and extreme labor. All of the cultural influences from other parts of the world that I find so fascinating and so intriguing came here through slavery or unfair trade and colonization a lot of the time. And as much as I admire them, and as beautiful as I think they are, and I really do think that they are beautiful, I can't help but think about their dark history at times. And the slave trade is not entirely a thing of the past here. It is still very much present in Zanzibari society, and it has shaped society on this island extensively. However, I choose to look at all of the ways that Zanzibar has changed since the abolition of slavery. In the former slave market now stands a church and a memorial. In the streets where formerly slaves worked and were trafficked now are full of people who are free, and tourists and little tourist shops, markets, and a legacy of history and culture. So this is the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it, the good and the bad aspects of Stone Town. I personally still love this place. It is one of my favorite places in all of Zanzibar, and if you come to the island, it's definitely a place that I think you should visit. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like, a comment, and make sure you subscribe. It really helps me out so much more than you think, and I hope to see you in my next video.